All right, welcome back to Rewatch or Return, the podcast where we put movies through the ultimate test across 10 universal categories to decide, does it call for a definite rewatch, a definite trip to the return bin, or does our subjectivity cause it to fall somewhere in between? I am excited about this one. This week, we're going to check out Mighty Ducks, The Mighty Ducks from 1992. I watched this one a while back, kind of planning on doing an episode over this one back then. And for some reason, didn't do it then, and I waited, and I've now watched through all three of them, and have decided that I'm going to go ahead and do at least the original, and then follow up with the sequel next week. I may not do the third, but as we talk about this, I may go ahead and decide to do the third. We'll see. But I just want to do 1 and 2 because this was a huge franchise movie watching for me growing up. It's probably one of my favorite. Like, sort of just like fun film franchises, like a movie, kind of like a family movie that has sequels. Usually, when this kind of stuff happens, even like Home Alone, things start to get like worse and worse. Your original cast does not get brought back, and the sequels, or at least the further on down the road, you may get one sequel with everybody, but then you end up moving on away from things. This was a trilogy that like kept everybody together, and so you got to see the same people. You kind of grew with them throughout the three films. It just kind of holds a special place for me. So anyway, this week it's just the original film. It's just the original Mighty Ducks. But just to let you know, going into this, next week I'm expecting, more than likely, I'm going to do the sequel and potentially even the third. So this might be Mighty Ducks 1, 2, and 3 in a row here, if you can handle that with me. But with that down, let's jump right into what the plot synopsis is for, I guess, Rotten Tomatoes, what they have on there. After reckless young lawyer Gordon Bombay, played by Emilio Estevez, gets arrested for drunk driving, he must coach a kids' hockey team for his community service. Gordon has experience on the ice, but isn't eager to return to hockey, a point hit home by his tense dealings with his own former coach, Jack Riley, played by Lane Smith. The reluctant Gordon eventually grows to appreciate his team, which includes promising young Charlie Conway, played by Joshua Jackson, and leads them to take on Riley's tough players, the Hawks. All right, with that down, let's jump right into Fast Forward Facts. Let's jump back to 1992 when a small Disney sports movie about a ragtag youth hockey team unexpectedly became one of the most beloved underdog stories of the decade. The Mighty Ducks combined heart, humor, and just enough slapstick to turn a kids' hockey team into a full-blown pop culture phenomenon. The film stars Emilio Estevez as Gordon Bombay, a hotshot Minneapolis lawyer who gets slapped with community service after a DUI. His punishment? Coaching the worst peewee hockey team in the league. A group of misfits who can barely skate, let alone win a game. Among the young cast were future stars, including Joshua Jackson as team captain Charlie Conway, along with Eldon Henson, Jesse Smollett, and Marguerite Moreau. Their team, initially called District 5, becomes known as the Ducks, embracing their underdog identity after Bombay pushes them to play their own style instead of copying the league's powerhouse team, the Hawks. The movie was directed by Stephen Herrick and written by Stephen Brill, who based parts of the story on his own childhood experiences playing youth hockey. At the time, Disney expected a modest family hit, but the film's mix of comedy, sports action, and heartfelt redemption struck a chord with audiences. Made for around $10 million, The Mighty Ducks earned more than $50 million at the box office, turning it into one of Disney's surprise hits of the early 90s, but the movie's impact didn't stop at the theaters. In one of the rarest examples of fiction, including real sports, Disney used the film's popularity to launch an actual NHL franchise in 1993, the Anaheim Ducks. The team even wore the same cartoon duck mask logo seen in the sequel, making it one of the few times a movie directly inspired a professional sports team. Behind the scenes, many of the young actors had limited hockey experience, so they underwent intensive skating training before filming. Some players became surprisingly good, though stunt doubles were used for most of the complex on-ice action. The film's iconic flying V formation, where the team skates together in a V-shaped attack, became a fan favorite. Real hockey coaches will tell you, though, it's completely impractical in actual gameplay, but that never stopped kids everywhere, including myself, from trying it on frozen ponds and roller rinks. The film's success led to two sequels, D2 The Mighty Ducks in 1994 and D3 The Mighty Ducks in 1996, expanding the story from a scrappy youth league team to international competition. More than 30 years later, The Mighty Ducks remains a nostalgic favorite for sports movie fans. It's not just about hockey, it's about second chances, teamwork, and finding confidence where nobody expected it. And in the end, the Ducks didn't just win games, they built a franchise, inspired a generation of young hockey players, and proved that sometimes the underdogs really do fly. All right. With that down, we're going to move right into what the critics said. This is where we look at the first top 10 critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, except there's not 10 reviews even for this film. There's more than 10 reviews, but as far as like the top critics, which is what I always go to, the top critics tab, try to be consistent with that and not just like grabbing random stuff. There's only 7 of them for this one, so we're gonna the top 10 is actually gonna be the top 7 because it's gonna be the only 7. The tomato meter on this dude is 27%, which was a little disappointing for me. The critics did not like this film. Popcorn meter is 65%, so your audience is pretty solid. I mean, definitely above average. I guess you could say that. 65 is I would consider good for a film like this, given that it's a kind of a kids' family film. But anyway, jumping right into what the critics said, Dwayne Burge from The Hollywood Reporter says, while nicely layered with tough, conflicting personal questions, Ducks ultimately flaps off into easy outcomes. Still, it's an overall charmer, and director Stephen Herrick keeps it flying with a nifty mix of slapstick and action. Derek Adams, simply from Time Out, simply says, very lame ice hockey flick. Okay. Janet Maslin from the New York Times says, the film is remarkably oblivious to the fact that if the team weren't hell-bent on a championship, young moviegoers would be significantly less interested in its adventures. Okay. Marjorie Baumgarten from Austin Chronicle says, I can understand why these unknown child actors were involved with this movie, but as for grown-ups, all I can figure is that they were each fulfilling some kind of community service obligation. Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times at the time, I guess this would have been 1999. I would think that would be during the Siskel and Ebert days, maybe, but maybe not. Ebert and Roper days, I'm not sure. He says, it must be said that this movie is sweet and innocent, and that at a certain level, it might appeal to younger kids. I doubt if its ambitions reach much beyond that. Rita Kempley from the Washington Post says, Stephen Brill, who has a small role in the film, constructed the screenplay much as one would put together some of those particle board bookcases from IKEA. And then Desson Thompson says, those not yet wise to formulaic pablum are likely to enjoy this ice hockey kiddie ensemble comedy, but their older escorts might want to bring a novel and a flashlight or a Walkman or portable television with earphones. Man, that is your what the critics said, which is rough for some of those guys. I have some things to say about that myself. We'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, that's your what the critics said, which is really kind of heartbreaking to me, to be honest with you. Moving on to first time or 50th. Is this a first time you've seen the film or 50th? It doesn't have to be 50th, obviously, but have you seen this movie several times or not, kind of thing? And for me, I probably saw the second one more than I saw any of them. This is, in a minute, we'll get into the sequel talk, but I've seen this one plenty of times. I've seen it over and over and over again growing up, but it was not my favorite of the three necessarily. I don't know that we ever had this one. I had the second growing up, which may be the reason that I saw it more. But obviously this would come on the Disney Channel, and I grew up watching this one as a kid as well. Definitely not a first watch. It had been years since I had seen it. It's not like one that I had seen regularly throughout the years. It had been years since I had seen it when I first watched it for this, or first sat down and said like I'm going to watch this potentially for a rewatch or return episode a few months back. But it had been years before that. But I've definitely seen this enough times where I was not unfamiliar, or I could have definitely told you the whole entire plot and was very familiar with the film before I went back and watched it again for all of this. I don't know that I've seen it 50 times over the years, but I've seen it more times than I could probably count on both all my fingers and toes. That's for sure. Moving on to be continued. Would a sequel for this film work? And if there's a sequel, should there have been? My opinion is absolutely yes. I have a lot to say about this as a trilogy. Maybe not a popular opinion, or maybe an opinion that no one else but me holds. But I am of the opinion that the sequel, D2, The Mighty Ducks, is one of the better sequels to any, like on a scale from 1 to 10, sequels being as good or better than the original, and continuing a story in a way that is captivating and not just like a rehash of the exact same thing. I would put this like way up on the scale of on when it comes to sequels. D2 is definitely my favorite of the three. Like I said, that maybe because that's the one that I watched the most, and I think we had that, in like one of the eggshell cases back in the day on VHS. Or maybe it was just one that played more on television. I'm not really sure, but there was something to that movie, something to the fact that I'm not going to get too into that sequel because I'm going to cover it next week. You don't have to hang around for that one. You can skip it if you want, if you're not into the whole Mighty Duck sequel thing. But I'm definitely going to cover it next week. So I'm not going to get too much into like the details of it now. But for me, I think like, yes, they did a good job of continuing this. They did a good job of, it's just like, it reminds me of like, it's not on the level obviously of Harry Potter or any of those kind of things, but like when you can be a young person and have a show or a movie come out or a series of things, when you can be a young person and like grow with the characters over the years, while like nobody's trying to keep them in the same age and continue like the same time period for them, but like the characters are able to grow throughout the series of events, and then like you are also growing yourself throughout the series of events. It's I wasn't a big Harry Potter person. My sister was, but I didn't grow up loving Harry Potter. I had seen them. It's not I've seen all of them now, and I'm not, we'll probably do Harry Potter stuff at some point, but it wasn't a huge thing for me. But I know the people who like were around that age of the characters when it came out, and they also grew with the characters over the years. Like that was a big deal. And so this was kind of the same for me. So that's why I hold a special place for like this trilogy in my heart and my love for films. Like there's just so much like good stuff about this. It's like very wholesome. It just reminds me of spending time with cousins and pretending we were these characters. I had cousins from St. Louis that were, that grew up, I guess, playing kind of league hockey and stuff. And so they would bring their sticks down, and we would, they had the little pucks that had the little rolly balls in them, because we would play out in the street or play with actual hockey, the little balls for street hockey stuff. But they would bring all their sticks down. We all had rollerblades. We would all play hockey in the street. It was all fun. And so like I never played hockey. Hockey wasn't really around where I grew up. So I don't have any connection like that to hockey, but I have like these movies connect me to like spending time with my family, when my cousins and stuff in the summertime when they would come in, or in the wintertime when they would come in for the holidays. And so I have like this special relationship and like memory of these movies and them influencing us as kids. And so like these are just special films to me, but also the fact that they are just like wholesome family films. which is not really like I think I'll get more into that here in a little bit. I don't want to talk all about that right this second. I'll get into that when we go into the later segment of the podcast. But yes, in my opinion, the sequels should exist. I think they were totally worth doing. They absolutely continued things in a good way. You got to grow with the characters, and so it was totally worth it. The stories weren't just simple rehashes, but they brought something new to each film, an added element to things. So I really enjoy all three of them. And now that I have rambled on and on about the sequel segment of this, before we jump into the final segment, today's episode is brought to you by PrepStartsNow.com, your go-to spot for emergency and outdoor preparedness. If you're anything like me, you'd rather be prepared and not need it than need the essentials and not have them. From 72-hour emergency essentials to camping gear, car emergency essentials, multi-tools, first aid, and even home gardening supplies as you start growing some of your own food, they've got you covered for all of it, and the best part is, as a listener, you can use the promo code REWATCH to get a 15% site-wide discount, and you'll also be helping out the show as they give us a small reward for your business in the process. Head to PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch. That's PrepStartsNow.com/discount/rewatch, or simply enter the code REWATCH at checkout and get prepared today. Okie dokie. With that down, we're going to get ready to jump into the last segment. But before we do, we're going to do a quick recap of the film, just kind of your basic plot points, I suppose. But essentially what you've got here, Emilio Estevez's character, Gordon Bombay, you start out the film and you find out like he's this hotshot lawyer and he's all, cocky and all about himself. And he eventually gets pulled over, drunk driving. He ends up having to do community service, and his community service requires him to coach this hockey team. At the beginning of the movie, you see him as a kid, and his coach is basically like, it's not about learning, or it's not about growing, or it's not about team. Everything is about like, you're either, if you can't win it for me, then you're no good to me, kind of thing. Is basically like, so that was his experience playing hockey. Like he obviously loved hockey as a kid. He was a great hockey player as a kid, but his coach essentially was like, everything's on the line and it's your shot, and you've got to, either win this for me or you don't. And if you don't make this shot, then you've not only you've let yourself down, you've let me down, you've let your whole team down, and that's the only thing that seemed to matter. So he had a real bad experience with hockey, and it seems like doesn't want anything to do with it, or has kind of that's kind of a sore spot for him. So he gets to where he's got to coach this hockey team, and when he goes to meet them, you find out they're just like a bunch of misfit kids that kind of aren't really good at the sport, and they want to play, but they're just kind of little, not a lot of guidance, look somewhat troublemakers. And so he ends up taking over this team, and he's got to coach them. But at first, he doesn't really want to do anything. He doesn't want to coach them. He doesn't want to put any real work into it. He's just trying to do his community service and get it all over with. So he's like, he's basically like finds out how bad they are, and so his whole entire plan is just like, hey, we're gonna be the floppers, the flopping team. And what I'm, if you know what I'm talking about, basically, hey, fall down and pretend you're hurt, see if you can't get a penalty out of it. Like, everything is all about trying to cheaply advance. And so he's teaching them that's what they're basically practicing, is practicing how to make it look like somebody else hurt you so that they can get a penalty, so that you can get the positive outcome out of it, not actually how to be good at hockey or teach them any lessons or anything like that. That's how things start out. And then Hans, his kind of old friend and mentor, talks to him and kind of reminds him of what hockey meant to him at one point, and how good he was, and how he's kind of disappointing in the way that he's acting and being, and he's become something that he never should have, and that's not who he truly is, and all that. So then he goes and basically takes a different approach and realizes hey, you know what, I need to care for these kids, and I need to teach them how to play hockey, and we need to do this right, and it's not all about winning. It's about it's about learning lessons and being a team and all that stuff. So eventually he goes to his boss, and that's how they become the Ducks. So they're just called District 5 hockey team, and they he goes to his boss, and his boss he's like, hey, we need money for like jerseys and stuff. His boss's name is Ducksworth, Mr. Ducksworth. So that's how they become the Ducks, because his boss sponsors them, and in the whole sponsoring situation, they're called the Ducks in connection with his last name, Ducksworth. So they become the Ducks, and he's over time teaching them things, and they have their moments of, he sarcastically says something to somebody. Somebody's basically telling him like those kids are worthless and they're not worth your time and they're whatever, and he's like, yeah, you're right. They are. You're right. And so but he says it sarcastically, but the kids overhear him. So there's this like moment in the film of the kids like thinking that he was talking bad about them and calling them losers and calling them worthless and all that stuff, but that's not what he was doing. He was being sarcastic to the guy. So he has to like repair their relationship, and they all get kind of back on board together, and he's teaching them how to play real hockey, and he's teaching them teamwork, and he's teaching them life lessons in the process that you learn as a team, how to, that it's not all, winning, it's you want to be great, you want to win, you want to push yourself, you want to try your best, but like ultimately, sometimes the outcome's not going to be what you want it to be, and that's not the end-all, be-all. But his old coach that basically he doesn't like is still coaching. He's coaching the best team in the league still, the same team that Gordon played for. And by the end of the film, he has gotten into the championship with that team. And they end up winning the championship against his old team, against his old coach. And then when the movie's all said and done, Charlie, one of the, kind of the team captain, him and Gordon, his mom and Gordon have a sort of like a romantic relationship that's budding. And at the end of the film, Gordon is leaving. He's going to go play minor league hockey, and so as he's leaving, it kind of sets up the next film. He's like, "Hey, I'll be back we got another championship to win. I'll see you next season," and all that. And then it sets up like him and her relationship, and they do their smooching before they leave, and it's all kind of like everybody wins, everything works out sort of at the end, and he's off as the film is over with. They have won the championship. The kids have all gotten a kind of like a new positive role model in their life, somebody that cares about them, somebody that's there for them and teaching them things. And he's learned his lessons, and he's changed, and he's better for having coached them, and they're better for having played underneath him. And then he's off to play minor league hockey, and we'll see what happens next. But that's how the film ends. And with that down, we are going to move right into the final verdict, where we put the film to the test across 10 categories, scored on a scale from 1 to 5. And that scale looks like this. 1 is poor, actively bad, annoying, or distracting. 2 is weak, flawed, or inconsistent. 3 is fair, adequate but nothing special. 4 is good, solid, works well but not iconic. And 5 is excellent, outstanding, a strong highlight of the film. And when that is all said and done and everything is scored, then on the verdict scale, if it falls between a 10 and 20, the ultimate score added up, if it's between 10 and 20, it'll be a return. If it's between 20 and 30, it's return worthy, unless you're feeling a little nostalgic. Between 30 and 40, it's a leans rewatch but debatable. And then between 40 and 50 is a certified rewatchable. Now, I have not scored any of these. I decided I'm going to do this in real time. I don't really know why, but that's what I decided. Last week when I did this, I kind of had a few that in the moment I ended up changing, because after talking about it, I changed my own mind. So for this one, it's going to be really hard for me to be like entire. It's not. it's all like subjective. I want to be objective in each category, but it's still like this is before this is even like scored. This is an entirely rewatchable film for me. This whole trilogy is a rewatchable trilogy for me. So, but still, the way this works is I'm trying to be as objective as possible in each category, and then wherever they, however the chips fall when they get it all added up, then that's how they fall. So, the first category is story and plot. Is the narrative compelling and coherent? Does it still hold up on a rewatch? So earlier when I was reading all of those reviews, and I was like, I'll have some things to say about this. I do. There's something that bugs me about people who review a film and they review it for what they want it to be rather than like review it for what it is. Like I'm not going to review I'm not going to go review a animated kids film and then get mad because it's not The Godfather. You know what I mean? I'm not going to like be like, well, it's just not, well, that's obviously it was never meant to be The Godfather. It was made for children. So you have to kind of judge it by what it's meant to be and what it was intended to be, and not by what your favorites are or what, it's like, if you can't, it's just my opinion. If you can't review things that way, if you're not able to get mad because either every film is, the best film ever made, or it's a horrible film. I just don't like the way that some critics, they're just a very kind of like a very snobby in the way that they consume or watch things. But from the perspective of story and plot, it's a compelling narrative, and it's entirely coherent. It holds up on a rewatch. Like there's nothing about this where story overall. There's a kids hockey team. They don't have a coach. They're terrible. This guy is a lawyer, used to play hockey, got himself in some trouble, has to now coach the team because he is doing community service, and in the process, he grows, they grow, he learns, they learn, he teaches them, they teach him, and this is like normal life stuff. Like you would expect this this is a reasonable story, a totally coherent, makes sense. Now some of the silliness is just silliness for the film, but like it doesn't affect the actual story and plot itself. And one thing that irritates me, so like one of the reviews that I read mentioned something, or maybe it was either one of these or it was another one that I read, but it mentioned something about basically like how unrealistic it would be for these guys to like win a championship. And that's another thing that like is quite ignorant to me, because like I guess the mentality is like the other team is like the best team and has always been the best team, and you have this team here who like was terrible at first, and then they ended up beating the other team. And my feeling and my thought on that is like, why are you able to shut yourself out of that? For example, like the whole tortoise and the hare story. Everybody knows that in an actual race, like the hare, like it's going to be faster every time. If it's just like, hey, let's race. But the whole point and like moral of the story is like when you underestimate your opponent, when you're cocky, when you know what I mean. Like there's so much that goes into like actual competition, and when you are like overly cocky and when you underestimate your opponent, you like you set yourself up for these moments to be, for underdogs to come in and you're unprepared for how prepared they were, or you were unprepared for their strategy, or you didn't think you had to properly strategize for, there's just like so much to competition that someone who would make a comment like that just completely doesn't understand. And so to say it's a stupid movie or it's ignorant because there's no way those kids could have actually won and beat that other team is just like one of the dumbest comments. And I'm not trying to get on here and just like knock everybody, but it is. It's like an ignorant comment about competition in general. If you understand that, like on any given day, in the right situation, anybody can be beat. given one team's preparation and the right scenario and the right situation going in. Now, I'm obviously that's not a blanket statement necessarily. I'm not trying to be ridiculous and yes, there are some situations where I'm I'm just saying that's an ignorant approach to things, or to even say that like a movie's no good because of that. But it all everything about this story and plot makes sense. Man, I've drug out this, I've drugged this one out, haven't I? This story and plot part of this. But anyway, the story and plot I think is compelling. It's coherent. It still holds up on a rewatch to me. I enjoy it. I think it has a lot of heart, and so I am going to give it a 4 out of 5 because I think it's good. Moving on to characters and performances. Are the characters memorable and well acted, or forgettable and flat? Well, Emilio Estevez, no matter what he has played in anything else, I mean, he comes from a great, a family of solid acting. No matter what else he's, been in or done, to me, Emilio Estevez will always be Gordon Bombay. Like I see that in him when he does interviews and he's just like him being him. Like I see Gordon Bombay in him. So in some ways it feels like he was kind of playing just sort of playing himself. But I think that his character is great. I think he does a good job. I think the kids do a great job. You have a lot of kids here who went on to do other things, particularly Joshua Jackson. Then you had, the infamous Jesse Smollett, or however you say his name. He went on to other things that wouldn't be I don't guess are related to acting necessarily, but anyway, he did have a career before some things went down. But a lot of these kids went on to do other stuff. So you had some they were all solid child actors and all did a really good job playing their parts. There's not anybody in this film where I'm like that's terrible or really cheesy acting or really bad acting or anything like that. So I'm going to put characters and performances because I think they did a good job at 4 also. Moving on to pacing and entertainment value. Were you entertained the whole time? Did the movie keep your attention? Does it feel too slow, too rushed, or just right? 3, pacing and entertainment value. So this movie, to me, does a really good job of mixing comedy with heart. It has emotional moments, and then it has extremely silly moments. It has almost these cartoonish silly moments. Particularly, there's one part in the film where that same really fast, kind of circusy, cartoony music that plays in Home Alone when they're all running through the. I think it's when they're running through the airport, or maybe it's when they all wake up in the morning and they're late and they've overslept, and then they're playing that. They're playing that song. And I guess that song is synonymous with "Oh crap, we better run." But the movie does well with moments with this kind of up and down thing where it doesn't leave you in a valley too much. It doesn't leave you up here, too much. So I think the pace from my opinion, pacing and entertainment value. I'm gonna also give a 4 out of 5. Dialogue and quotability. Are there iconic and memorable lines? Do you still quote it? Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? Must be the quack, quack, quack going on in my head. Natural or cringy? Yes, there are iconic and memorable lines. Do people still quote it? People my age do, for sure. Does the dialogue feel natural or cringy? I don't think there's anything that I caught or remember being super cringy about this. I mean, there's stuff that the kids say to one another, but that's like kids talking to kids, smack talking each other. I remember when I was a kid, for whatever reason, as much as I could appreciate the Averman character, the hey better 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 hey better 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 swing better better like that stuff. Like I laughed, but it was like this kind of annoying laugh where there was some of the Averman stuff annoyed me as a kid as much as I do love the character. But I don't think there's anything like super cringy in this. There are iconic lines, especially of the time or of the generation that like watched this. So I'm going to give dialogue and quotability also a 4 out of 5. Soundtrack and score. Does the music enhance the film or date it? Does it elevate the emotional tone of the film or feel out of place? Is it iconic or generic? I don't think the music's necessarily iconic. I get this melody for this soundtrack or for this score for this film, like the Mighty Ducks theme. I get mixed up with another theme, another song all the time, but I don't think it's like iconic. I don't think it's super generic. I think it does what it's meant to do. It's not some crazy special thing that's going to end up on a, like I've said before, it's not going to end up on a compilation of film scores that are popular and you're going to know exactly what it is when you hear it. I would know what it is when I hear it, but I'm very familiar with with the films. But I don't think there's anything necessarily iconic about it. It's not generic. It's just in like that good range of like it does its job. And because of that, boom, soundtrack and score is also going to get a 4 out of 5 for me. Now, cinematography and visual style. Is it visually engaging or stylish, regardless of effects budget or genre? Do the camera work and effects still impress, or do they look dated or clunky? I don't think the way that this film was shot, that there's anything super duper special about it. I mean, like it's not super stylish. It's not, you don't have like a bunch of, what are they called, Dutch angles and doing some. It's like it just kind of like they're just shooting the film. They're telling the story. It's not a lot. It's not super artistic in its framing and things like that. It's just telling the story through. You know what I mean. So like, there's nothing over the top that's just visually popping about it, but it's a well shot film. There's nothing that like looks odd or where I'm questioning like that I don't even understand why you would do that or put them there or anything like that. There doesn't seem to be anything cheap about the film. It's just, I would like, again, I'm gonna put this one in the 4 out of 5 category and just say like it's good, like it's well done, and we'll move on to originality and creativity. Does the film feel fresh and inspired, or like something you've seen 100 times? Was the film groundbreaking or formulaic? Does it bring something unique? Okay, here's where I could say, so the fact that this film inspired a professional hockey team says a lot. Whether you want to say that like the kind of story is not necessarily super unique. There's a special thing about the Mighty Ducks in general. There's just a special thing about it. There's a special it has a special thing. It was special in its time. It's special for my generation, and the fact that like they were able to start a hockey team, and both of them, like where this could push that and that could also push this. It became this relationship between the two that kind of kept both going and both relevant for that so many year period where these films were coming out and that team was just becoming a new franchise. So from that alone, like I'm gonna say it's an inspired situation, and was groundbreaking in a way. Not even groundbreaking from a story standpoint or anything like that, but like groundbreaking in like the impact that it had or the effect that it had or the influence that it had on other things. And so I'm going to put originality and creativity because it birthed a hockey team. And it, again, I'm not saying that the movie was so popular they felt like they had to make a hockey team. I'm saying the fact that the movie could could in such a way be connected to a professional thing, and to where like I would have never ever in my entire life cared about a team called the Anaheim Mighty Ducks or the Anaheim Ducks, but the fact that I like this film franchise made me want to watch professional hockey so I could watch the professional Ducks play. And because of that, like I'm giving this, you might disagree with me, I'm giving it a 4.5 on originality and creativity because of because of the connection that it has to do with all that. Maybe that may not be the best way to go about this, but like that's it's my choice, and that's what I'm doing. Theme and message: is there a deeper takeaway, and does it explore ideas that resonate today? Here is, I think, like where this film super shines, and you can call it cheesy or whatever you want, but like I like the there's so much like solid messaging in this film. What does it mean to stand for something? What does it mean to grow and change and do what's right and fight for something bigger than yourself and be part of a team? And what does it mean, like the idea that you can strive for something, you can strive for excellence. What you're doing can be about being excellent at something, and yet it doesn't have to be all about winning at the same time. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much to this film from a theme and message perspective. As a kid, especially, but even like now, I don't feel like we get this kind of stuff in films. So, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 for theme and messaging because I think it's solid. I think you could put any young person in front of this film, and I think they would like come away feeling inspired, and that's good enough reason for me to give it a 5 out of 5. All right, cringe factor. Are there any jokes, effects, or moments that haven't aged well or were always bad? Moments that make you wince now? Campy, cheesy, bad effects, outdated jokes that aren't funny, etc. Okay. The cringe stuff for me, like as an adult watching this now, the places that I would say like affect this on the cringe factor, from a cringe factor perspective, are things like Fulton being portrayed as this huge giant kid who can, hit a hockey puck so hard that he's going to bust glass, or knock somebody down, or hit a gigantic storage clothing trunk and flip it over and cause the lid to shut, and like stuff like that. Like I get it. I get what they were doing. They were making him like this big, strong enforcer, kind of the intimidation approach to things. But like that's the area where there's a little bit of cringe in this for me. So, I'm gonna say like for the most part for me for this being a family friendly movie, like an enjoyable family film about children playing hockey. I don't think it's a super cringy, cheesy film, but it has a few cringy moments or a few cringy things about it. So I'm gonna give this. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 and say like they did a good job of making a film that children can sit down with their parents and watch and both can enjoy. And yet they still did some stuff in there that just was like, a little cheesy, cringy, to kind of beef up certain things and certain parts of certain characters. So it was like the kid factor in this, whether kids whether it's fine for kids or not. I mean, like, what I'm saying is whether kids enjoyed it or not and it didn't affect them. Like, I don't, watching this as a kid, I was just like, Fulton's awesome and he's huge and he's strong and he's, but like in reality, like he's this kid who is 13 years old maybe is not going to walk up behind two other bodies, grab them. Well, I don't care how big they are, two other kids around his age, and grab them by the shirt collar and pick them up off their feet, one with like one in each hand. Like that's not going to happen. So things like that bring this to me for me down from a 5 to a 4. But on the cringe factor, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. Moving on to nostalgia and rewatchability. Does it hold up to your memory of it? Does it still matter today? Is it timeless or has it aged poorly? Does a rewatch ruin the magic? And would you honestly watch it again? It definitely holds up to my memory of it. Actually, I think potentially even better than I remembered. Or put it this way, when I sat back down after several years of not having watched it, I was expecting it to be a little bit more kiddie, in like, and not expecting to be like moved as much by certain things in certain moments. And so like, actually it was a little bit better than I remembered. I think it still matters today personally because of the effect that it had on an entire generation of people who wanted to play hockey. It matters today enough to the point that like they felt like even though the series didn't do well or didn't do well enough to, you got to know how all of the things work where like for streaming, keeping things on a particular platform when they're not getting played enough, it's a whole deal with like money and licensing and all that kind of stuff. Even if you own it yourself, it's like a whole deal. So Disney took, there were 2 seasons of a TV series that were made as a continuation of sort of like later on in the story. And those two seasons have been taken off of Disney Plus. But like the fact that there were 3 original films, this affected an entire generation of kids who wanted to play hockey. It birthed a hockey team, an NHL hockey team that still is a team to this day. And then like within the last couple of years, there was a season 1 of a Mighty Ducks series with new kids and a whole new thing. And then it was picked up. That was locked enough to pick it up for a second season before they removed it from the platform a little bit later. So like it mattered enough for all those things. It mattered enough to have a 2 more seasons of a television show made after even they had a trilogy. It was like, so it matters enough that for all of that, like for me to be able to say like, yes, I think it still matters today. I think its effect pop culturally matters enough today. I think, yes, I think this is a timeless film. I think it's a timeless family film. Like, I think this is a film, in my opinion, it still looks really good. It was shot well. The acting is solid. It's a fun and enjoyable story. And I think that any like reasonable human beings, any reasonable kids with reasonable parents can all sit down together and I think still enjoy this film. I don't think like it's could only be enjoyed in the time that it was made. Like I think it's one of those films that like still to this day it's an enjoyable film and will always be able to be watched, and it doesn't feel like, oh, well, this is not as good because it's a different day and age now. Like I don't think that's ever going to be the case. So I think it's aged well. A rewatch does not ruin the magic. Yes, I would honestly watch it again. Nostalgia and rewatchability for me, this gets a 5 out of 5. I think like this is just like one of my favorite trilogies of all time, especially when it comes to family-friendly content. And like what I want to say after watching all of these, what I want to say that I thought the whole entire time watching through all 3 of these is like what happened to I don't know if Hollywood is the word to say, but like, what happened to filmmaking? Like the days of like there were so many kid-friendly films that didn't talk down to kids, didn't they didn't present themselves as if kids are stupid, they can't understand anything. Like they were made for children, but they were made also for parents to enjoy, and they were about deeper things. And I feel like we like slowly we've gotten away from the family film, and anything that gets made for young people now is just some animated thing. Like they like it's either incredibly stupid and just like sort of not talks down to, but like dumbs down things and treats children as if they're just dumb and can't understand anything and can't emotionally grasp anything. And so you either get that, or you get like, yeah, it was a really good movie, but it's an animated film. So they like you don't get these good, solid stories where you get real people, real human stories, real human issues. I mean, even like this film, like Charlie's dad left. He's being raised by a single mother. She's talking to Gordon, who has a romantic interest in her, about the fact that like I can't let this happen to Charlie. Like I don't know what your intentions are here, but like I can't let men keep coming into my life who are going to leave because it's hurting him. And like I watched that as a kid and understood it. I mean, like everybody doesn't necessarily have to be in that position, but like it wasn't that part of life, that reality wasn't dumbed down for children. It was presented to children as like these are things that people deal with, and like here's a person who cares about Charlie, whether him and Charlie's mom like ultimately worked out or not. Like it was clear that like he cared about Charlie and he was going to be there for him no matter what, whether it was from coaching, or ultimately the kid would never be like without him. He would always be his coach. He would always be there anytime he needed him. So like there's just so much that I miss about family films, The Little Giants, stuff that just stuff that I grew up on that was like a little bit silly, but still there was heart to it. Even like the Dennis the Menace, like there's even when things are cheesy and corny and silly and goofy, they were still full of heart, and there was like a magic to them. They could be enjoyed by all ages, whether obviously kids are going to enjoy them more than adults, but like the adults can still go like, hey, like that was a fun thing, or I enjoyed sitting down and watching that, or like I remember watching that with my kids. We watched that a lot. I mean, there's so many movies that my parents watched with me over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm sure that while they weren't as into them as me, the kind of movies and things that like this that I watched growing up, that we watched as kids growing up, our parents could watch and I'm sure didn't feel like that's so stupid, I can't handle watching it one more time. You know what I mean? Like I know they didn't feel that way, but there's movies like now that I feel that way about, and I'm not even a parent, and but I've experienced nieces and nephews and cousins and things where it's like, ugh, like we have to watch this thing again. So anyway, I know I'm kind of rambling about that, but like it's something that bugs me because I miss movies like this. I don't think we get them enough. Even movies like The Goonies or like Home Alone, like we just don't get like family films anymore. Everything has to have some sort of nonsense agenda about it, and I don't really care what anybody's thoughts or views on whatever is. It's like we are not able to seemingly have a universal thing that we can all appreciate that is not in some way, shape, form, or fashion infected by something or dumbed down to the point that it can't be enjoyed. And it's heartbreaking to see like the state of filmmaking and writing and all that. But I will not keep going on and on and on and on and on about that. Nostalgia and rewatchability got a 5 out of 5 for me. Anyway, let's take a look at what we got here. All right. We're going to add these dudes up. Let me start with, all right, story and plot, got a 4 out of 5. Characters and performances, got a 4 out of 5. Pacing and entertainment value, got a 4 out of 5. Dialogue and quotability, got a 4 out of 5. Soundtrack and score, got a 4 out of 5. Cinematography and visual style, got a 4 out of 5. Originality and creativity, got a 4.5 for me out of 5. Theme and message, got a 5 out of 5. And cringe factor, got a 4 out of 5. And then nostalgia and rewatchability, got a 5 out of 5. Bringing the final score for this dude to 42.5 out of 50, meaning that it falls between 40 and 50 and is considered, by Dylan at least, certified rewatchable. Again, man, I miss these films so much, so much, and like love that they're still there. Love that I purchased them recently. They were on sale on Fandango. What I like to do for movies a lot is I don't want to go out and just like buy every film at like the the main price or whatever. But the Fandango at Home app, a lot of times like I'll get on there on Tuesdays and there'll be a new batch of movies and they'll be like the $5 movies, and so I'll just get on there every Tuesday and I'll look through there and see. And some weeks there's a movie or two that I'll get, and some weeks there's not. But a while back I got on there and all the Mighty Ducks movies were on there for $5. So I got all three of them for $5 a piece and added them to my own collection, even though they are on Disney Plus, and I do have Disney Plus. So if I wanted to watch them, they were there available, but I wanted them for myself, so that if like I wanted to download them to a device and take them somewhere or watch them or whatever, or if Disney took them off of there for some reason, I would still have them for myself. So I'm glad to own these movies. I am going to move into the sequel, part 2, next week. So if you like Mighty Ducks and you want to come back around for that one, it will be next week. We will be getting into D2, the Mighty Ducks. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you don't mind, like this video and subscribe to the channel, and it would really help out things from a perspective of the whole algorithm and what they see with the interactions and all that kind of stuff. For those of you who are listening, or even those of you who are watching, if you're listening and you can't do what I just said, you could go to, if you want to have something to say, if you want to comment or anything like that, let me know your thoughts or your experience or your past or your growing up or whatever with these movies. You can go to Rewatch or Return on Instagram, and there'll be the post related to this particular episode, and you can comment on that if you want to. But that is going to be all of everything for this week, and I will see you next week.